Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a classic story you think you know and turning it completely on its head.
For thousands of years, right, the world has seen Odysseus as the hero. You know the one. He's clever, he's tough, and he is just desperate to get back home after the Trojan War. This is the guy who battled monsters and gods for 10 years, all for his family and his kingdom. But what if that's all a lie? What if this epic adventure is really just a masterful piece of propaganda? A story told by a villain? A confession, really, designed to hide a much, much darker truth. So this is the story he wants us to believe. The official version, right? He's the poor victim of fate, the last guy trying to get home, just suffering so much, a man more wronged than wronged. But let's actually look a little closer at the details.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, we have to talk about something called an unreliable narrator. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. It's someone telling their own story, but you just can't trust them. They're twisting the facts, hiding the bad stuff and making themselves look great.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Who is it that tells us all the craziest parts of the story? The sirens, the cyclops, the journey to the underworld? It's not some all-knowing storyteller. No, it's Odysseus himself. He's telling the whole story in the first person. And get this, he's telling it to a king whose help he desperately needs. He's a shipwrecked nobody who needs ships and money. And look at how he kicks it off. "Oh, my sorrows, the gods have been so cruel to me." He's immediately playing the victim. It's brilliant, really.
All right, so let's put him on the stand. We're going to treat his story like testimony in a trial. And the best part? We'll use the evidence he gives us against himself. Let's start with Exhibit A, the whole Cyclops disaster.
So he tells us they make this brilliant escape, right? They're home free. But that's not enough for Odysseus. His ego just can't handle it. He has to turn around and taunt the blinded monster. And then he makes the dumbest move of all. He shouts his real name. He absolutely had to make sure the Cyclops knew who beat him, even though it put every single one of his men at risk. It's pure, toxic arrogance.
And boom, there it is. This is the key. The curse that haunts him for the next 10 years, the curse that gets every single one of his men killed, it wasn't bad luck, it wasn't the gods being mean, it was a direct result of his own stupid, selfish pride. He did this. He brought all of it down on himself, and more importantly, on his crew.
And believe me, this wasn't a one-time thing. This kind of self-serving garbage is a pattern. So let's move on to Exhibit B, his so-called loyalty. This is where the hypocrisy just gets breathtaking.
The whole story is built around his amazing wife, Penelope, right? She has to stay faithful for 20 years, fighting off over 100 guys. The pressure's immense. Meanwhile, what's our hero, Odysseus, up to? Oh, just spending 7 years shacked up with the goddess Calypso, and another full year with the sorceress Circe. The double standard here is just, wow. And it gets worse. Odysseus tells us this story about going to the underworld and getting a warning from the ghost of King Agamemnon. Don't trust women, not even your own wife. Can you believe the nerve? The guy who has spent the better part of a decade cheating is being told to be suspicious of his perfectly faithful wife. The irony is just off the charts.
And this is how he spins it. It's never his fault, see? He tells us he was forced to stay with Calypso. And sleeping with Circe, oh, that was just a necessary sacrifice to save his men. Give me a break. For 7 years? For a whole year? These aren't necessities. They're the pathetic excuses of a man who will not take responsibility for anything.
So this pattern of putting himself first, it isn't just about his personal life. Oh no. It bleeds right into his job as a commander. Which brings us to Exhibit C.
Okay, so picture this. He's warned by Circe that he has to sail through this narrow strait. On one side, a monster that could sink his whole ship. On the other side, a different monster that will, with 100% certainty, snatch up and eat 6 of his crew. He has to make a choice. He chooses Scylla. Let that sink in. He makes the executive decision that 6 of his men are going to die. And then he has the gall to describe it so emotionally, saying it was the most sickening sight, and that he heard them screaming his name as they died. He's trying to make us feel sorry for him in this moment. But here's the kicker. Does he ever tell his crew? Does he ever say, hey guys, listen, 6 of you aren't going to make it through this? No, not a word. He presents it like some unavoidable tragedy. but it was a cold, calculated sacrifice. He knew exactly what was going to happen, and he let those men row to their deaths completely clueless. They trusted him, and he treated them like pawns. Acceptable losses.
So what have we seen? Ego, hypocrisy, and just absolute ruthlessness. And it all builds to the famous climax of the story, his big return home to Ithaca.
108. That's how many suitors had basically invaded his house. And let's be clear, these guys were scum. They were disrespecting his wife, eating all his food, and even planning to kill his son. What they did was inexcusable. But it's what Odysseus does next that really tells you everything you need to know about him.
So, as they're getting ready to take them all down, Odysseus tells us his son sees the room literally glowing with divine light. See what he's doing? In his story, this isn't just revenge anymore. No, this is a holy mission, sanctioned by the gods themselves. He's building a case to justify the bloodbath that's coming. And just in case you didn't get it, he throws in another little detail. Right as he strings his super special bow, thunder cracks from the heavens. The king of the gods himself is giving him the thumbs up. This isn't about justice. This is about Odysseus painting himself as God's own hitman. And then it happens. He and his son lock the doors, and they butcher every last one of them, all 108. There's no talking, no chance to surrender, no mercy for anyone who might have been caught in the middle. It's just a meticulously planned slaughter to prove he's back in charge. So you have to ask yourself, is this a hero taking back his kingdom, or is this a cold-blooded killer, using the idea of divine will to justify a massacre? When you actually listen to his own story, the one he tells, you see a man who blames everyone but himself, a hypocrite of the highest order, and a leader who treats his men's lives as disposable.
So, what's the verdict? Is Odysseus the hero we've all been taught to admire? Or, when you look at the evidence from his own mouth, is he actually literature's first great con artist? A villain so brilliant, so manipulative, that he managed to write his own legend and trick the entire world for 3,000 years? You decide.